In my previous video, I gave you 10 significant reasons why Russian is quite an easy language to learn. And I still strongly believe that. But if so, why is it still considered to be one of the world's hardest languages? And why are there some students who are still struggling to speak it even after 2 or 3 years of studying? From this video, you will learn about the very first traps that every beginner will face during even their first hours of learning Russian. And I will give you my recipe for what you should do to pass these traps successfully by being more attentive to what the language has to offer you and to become a relaxed and confident Russian speaker. Sometimes Russian is like a Lego model. It has so many details that you ask yourself, do we really need so many of them? But once you've got the manual and you know what to do with all these little colorful things, and you understand what you're supposed to get in the end, you start enjoying the process, which is what I hope you will do after watching this video. So buckle up and let's get this motorcycle built. Probably the very first thing you're going to face, even before you get to the grammar, is the word stress. Many languages, like French, have a fixed stressed syllable. So whenever you see a new French word, you always know how to pronounce it, because it's the last syllable that is going to be stressed. Bonjour, je m'appelle Nina, je vis dans un château. While Russian is ultimately chaotic in this. Not only can any syllable be stressed, женщина, мужчина, рука, книга, город, but the word stress can change within one word depending on its grammatical form. Город, города, города, междугородний. This might be frustrating, and even after 2 or 3 or even 5 years of studying, you still can be confused by a new word you come across. So what to do about it? The secret is simple. The more you're familiar with the language, the more you practice it, the fewer unknown words you see, and the more intuition you gain. You might think I'm talking about some unforeseeable future where you've mastered Russian like a native. But I'm not. In our everyday life, we use a couple of hundreds of words, most of which you will learn during the first weeks of your studying. Pronunciation of many others is rather predictable. So it's not as scary as it might seem at first, trust me. And guess what? Even native speakers from time to time come across an unfamiliar word and don't know how to pronounce it correctly. And that's okay, there is no shame in it. And there is even less than no shame in not knowing how to pronounce a word when you're simply a student. And the only reason why Russians make much fewer mistakes in pronunciation is because they've been practicing this language for their entire life. So yeah, practice is everything. The other feature that you might think is weird or not, depending on what your native language is, still it definitely makes things thrice more complicated, is grammatical genders. There are 3 of them in Russian: masculine, feminine, and neuter. For some languages, grammatical genders are a normal thing, while others have never heard of such. If the existence of such a differentiation unsettles you, think of it just as a convention. These are simply the names we've given to these 3 groups of words to make it easier to get around the grammar. Obviously, this pen has no more feminine characteristics than this pencil, but the 2 words will be declined differently. Это ручка, это карандаш. У меня нет ручки, у меня нет карандаша. Это синяя ручка, это синий карандаш. The genders classify all the words by how they sound and look, and thus organize our grammar in a better way. What is so difficult here is the correct and consistent choice of endings. Моя синяя ручка, мой синий карандаш. Моя красивая сестра, мой красивый брат. Я люблю мою красивую сестру. Я люблю моего красивого брата. У меня нет сестры, у меня нет ручки. У меня нет карандаша, у меня нет брата. This is called the agreement. Many of you do not probably think of it as a problem, but I know many students who forget to observe this agreement between the words, even when they're already far into level A2. It's hard to constantly be paying attention to such technicalities. This is why I wanted to address this difficulty too. Practice again will solve all of your problems. The genders are logical and predictable, and even in rare cases when they aren't, you won't make a mistake if you've said this word a million times before. So I'd like you to pay attention to this too. When learning Russian, I would also advise you to compose whole grammatically correct phrases and memorize words in phrases. This will help you to detect and choose a correct grammatical form much faster and in a more effective way. The easiest way is to add a possessive pronoun before the word. Это моя тетрадь, это мой учитель. Or an adjective. Это красная тетрадь, это хороший учитель. If you want to be super effective, you can make bigger phrases with more context. На столе лежит красная тетрадь. В этой школе работает хороший учитель. Did you notice that I used noun with the soft sign? It's the trickiest letter in our alphabet because words ending in soft sign can be either masculine or feminine, and it's usually hard to tell, even for Russians. But the surrounding words in a sentence will give it away, and that is why it's so great to memorize words and phrases. And it's much easier for words that end in other letters. So я will be feminine, моя любимая красивая сестра. Ое will be neuter, это дорогое красное вино. And words that end in a consonant will be masculine. Этот красивый, талантливый актер. So is that all for the genders? No. The three genders plus the plural number together form 4 grammatical paradigms by which each Russian word can be declined. And this is our next and biggest trap. Hey, real quick, I want this channel to be as helpful for you as possible and that it aids you in understanding Russian and other languages better. So please, share in the comments any questions or difficulties related to language learning that you have, and I will address them in my next videos. It is possible that you feel like you want to subscribe to this channel. Don't hesitate to do so. This will make me very happy and will help this channel and other language learners a lot. So thank you. Earlier, I mentioned that Russian words will be declined in different ways depending on what gender they belong to. And what is this declined exactly about? So this is called the cases. To put it simply, they're grammatical forms of words that show what role each particular word plays in a sentence. It is done by means of changing the endings of nouns, adjectives, and pronouns. This is the skeleton of our language and its main difficulty at the same time. The use of cases forms and then demonstrates us the structure of every phrase we say. What's so difficult about them? There are several things. First, it might be difficult to comprehend the idea itself and why we need genders at all when in English, let's say, we have none and we are doing great without them. You will hear more about that in my next videos. It is also hard to understand which situation requires what case because it's quite an intricate and not always a logical system. And then there is just honestly a lot to learn. I tried to count every ending that we use and I got the rough number of 180. It may be less, it may be more, don't quote me on this number because I spent like a minute on this math and in the end it means nothing, but can you imagine learning 180 endings, let's say in one day? Okay, we have a whole complicated system of endings and forms to learn. How can we do it? You won't believe. Take your time. Of course, you can go ahead and read about and see all the cases at once to know the bigger picture, and seeing the bigger picture helps, it does. But there is a huge difference between just being aware of this picture and trying to learn everything, all of it, in one day. That is why I say take your time. Don't be one of those students who end up knowing something about the cases, but not knowing how to use them correctly, who use them incorrectly, and do not use them at all eventually. By the way, remember what I said about learning words and phrases? It totally applies here. Just take a word whose forms are difficult for you to remember and use it in different grammatical situations. Это моя кровать. Я сплю на кровати. Монстр живет под кроватью. What I try to teach my students is not just knowing, but understanding and feeling what case goes where. It takes a long time to figure out, and I guess no one can just upload this information to your brain, but this is something you can dig into. This is a kind of inner work that you could do. Try to see into the purpose of each case. Try to explain to yourself why we need this case there and that case here, and how you could memorize the forms. Naturally, I will cover as much of it as possible in my upcoming videos, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's all about how it is more logical for you. When we are kids, we'll learn to understand the world around us, and we can do the same with the language. Explain to yourself why this happens, build theories and hypotheses, find analogies, and make up funny stories. So I guess the main thing for this video is don't be in a rush. Don't try to do everything at once, because this is where most of the students fail. There are some languages, like Russian, where you really need to take your time to get used to structures. And sometimes it really does take a long time to learn things that are easy in other languages, but in Russian they aren't easy. This is just the way it is, but what I'm trying to say is that you can do it. It is a long journey, but you don't have to do everything at once. Practice and understand and practice. In my personal belief, learning a language is about your personal creativity. And the best part about this creativity is that there is no objective scale to measure it. It is purely about what works for you. And the more creative you are in acquiring, the better results you get. This is the path of growth, and growth comes with time. Everyone who is familiar with the Russian grammar knows what is now to come: the verbs. Our verbs have two infamous qualities: the perfective-imperfective paradigm and a whole group of verbs that is called the verbs of motion. But you see, my motorcycle is already built, so how is so? That's because, honestly, if you're a complete beginner, you don't have to bother yourself with these slightly more advanced features. Lucky for us, Lego has made this motorcycle with two possible versions, so stay tuned for a video where we will build a more extreme version of it while I'm explaining you the verbs.